Hello and welcome back to the Karma Stories podcast. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today I have 4 stories for you from the Malicious Compliance subreddit. Make sure to hit that follow button for us on your podcasting platform of choice. And if you're on YouTube, drop a like on the video. Wait, hold up. Drop a like on the video because it really helps us out. Alright, on to today's stories. Let's jump right in. This story comes to us from Ars Tarok. Be careful what you scream for. I work as a support manager for a company that sells credit card readers and other services for processing money. Our story starts with a phone call that one of our newest staff members received. The caller does not introduce themselves and instead loudly demands to speak to no less than the CEO of the company and will not give any information aside from his repeated demands and some indirect swearing. Normally, this would earn them a terminated call, but I want to know who has the balls to scream at my staff, so I have him transferred over. Having had some of these calls before, I introduce myself with a very fancy title and ensure the caller that whatever his support needs are, I can handle them without any issue. The CEO is busy at the moment and I am next in line in the support organization. This is not entirely true, but it works to calm people down and get them to tell me what is actually wrong. The caller is named Steve. Not just any Steve, mind you, but Steve, the owner of Steve's Cafe. And not just one Steve's Cafe, mind you, but the owner of all 7 Steve's Cafes. Steve is offended that he was given to me and not the CEO like he demanded. He is the owner, you see, and needs to talk to my owner, not me. I don't own 7 cafes, and I certainly don't own my company, so I can't understand Steve's needs, and can't make the hard choices he needs made. I again assure him that I do have the position and authority to do anything he requires. I am the manager of the support department. I can make any changes he requires. I can set up new accounts or order new devices, anything. He only needs to tell me his problems, and I will provide solutions. I will support him. The words are immediate and aggressive. Can you cancel my accounts? Well, yes, I can. I inform him that we need a written request to cancel. I also try to inquire why he needs to cancel his accounts. This is standard procedure. If he wants to close his accounts, then we close his accounts, but any feedback is useful. Is he leaving because our product was bad? Because our service was bad? Because he found a better deal? But before I can get more than a few words out, he shouts again, "Have the CEO call me, he has my number," and he disconnects. I report this up the chain. No email means no cancellation, but still, bosses need to know. First thing next morning, I get invited to an emergency meeting by the CEO, as well as a few other pertinent admins. We go over what happened. Then I am shown an email. Steve managed to find the CEO's internal email address and sent him an email complaining about one of his 7 stores having a horrible time with the product. He is demanding no less than the cancellation of all his accounts and a refund for 3 months of payments he has made for each, as the product is totally unusable. I checked the logs. The problem location does indeed have a problem. That started yesterday morning. They're not down, but they are having a hard time. There are no emails or calls informing us, just the screaming cancellation request. I send over the call logs, and we listen to Steve scream and curse at the support agent before he got sent to me. And then, I hear 2 words that cue the malicious compliance. Cancel them. The meeting goes quiet. The CEO has spoken. We cancel all 7 accounts and shut down services. They start their day with devices that do not work. The calls come in. Again, the CEO speaks. That account is canceled. Follow procedure. So each manager calls me frantically explaining that nothing is working. The staff apologetically tell them that their account was canceled per their owner's email. We can no longer provide support. Shortly thereafter, the owner calls in, once again screaming to turn them back on. Uncancel them this instant. Get the devices working. He's losing money. I check with the CEO, and after receiving a nod, I say, Per your request made over the phone yesterday and your email this morning, your accounts have been canceled. Steve just gets madder and says he didn't mean to actually cancel them. He just wanted to let us know what would happen if we didn't fix his issue. He continues to yell. I let the CEO know, and at his request, I transfer Steve to his office phone. I wish there was a satisfying end to the story, but Steve and our boss talked. Steve was informed that his behavior was unacceptable. Steve admitted that he was expecting expedited service and possibly a discount when he threatened to cancel. He didn't really want to cancel his accounts. He just wanted support to take him seriously and transfer him up the chain so he could get faster, better service. There was no real apology, though both I and the initial support agent were told that Steve would behave himself from now on, and to report if he didn't. Services were resumed, and all 7 locations were opened a bit late. The one location that did have issues yesterday got on the phone with a support agent and were sorted out in a reasonable amount of time. All is right in heaven and earth. But I do hope Steve learned that threatening to cancel your account sometimes leads to you canceling your account, and not to a discount. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called Forever Agreeable 2289. It says, can you imagine how much it must suck to work for Steve? Another commenter down below called Harry WWC said, yeah, I'm a bit of a butthole. I would have left them cancelled and told Steve to pound sand. I'm sure one of the competitors could get his stores up and running in a week or so, maybe. F around and find out. Steve is one of those big fish in a little pond kind of people. We've talked about them here many times, and I don't think there's too much I can comment on this story that hasn't been said already and that you're not already thinking, but one thing I can definitely do is add in a screw you, Rick, because this guy reminds me completely of my old boss named Rick, and he was a dick, which is kind of fitting because his name was Richard. But anyway. Yeah, screw you, Rick, and let's move on to the next story. This story comes to us from MouseG23. You want us to dress in business attire when all other departments get to wear blue jeans? You got it. This happened many, many years ago. I worked for a top US banking institution. In our building, all of the other departments were allowed to wear blue jeans on Fridays. My manager decided that our department had to wear business attire on Fridays. To be clear, we had no customer-facing presence. Also, our department processes check deposits from ATMs, and they came in mesh bags from the armored couriers. They were usually quite filthy and were frequently wet in bad weather. So when our manager told us that we couldn't wear blue jeans on Fridays like every other department, the entire team was upset. Here is where we cue the malicious compliance. The next Friday, I went to my closet and found the most mismatched outfit I could put together, sticking completely to business attire. We're talking pastel floral print shirt with pants with bold colored stripes. I put it on and proudly walked into the office. My manager just happened to be on vacation that week, so nothing was said about my ridiculously mismatched outfit. Fast forward to the next Friday, I, once again, chose the most hideous combination of an outfit that I could put together. Once again, I walked into the office with my head held high, confident in my business attire. Imagine my surprise when I walked in and everyone on my team had on hideous combinations of clothing. As you can imagine, my boss walks in and sees everyone in their various hideous outfits. The look on her face was priceless. All 15 of us in hideous outfits, but all meeting the business attire dress code. She pulled us all into a meeting and told us that our attire was entirely inappropriate for a business environment and that she would have to write each and every one of us up. I asked her to pull out the company handbook and read the definition of what it said as business attire. She read it, and it stated something like clean and pressed business attire consisting of slacks, skirts, or dresses, and clean pressed shirts or blouses. It went on to say something like no blue jeans, t-shirts, ripped or clothes with holes, no sleeveless shirts, and no athletic or gym shoes. I asked her where in the guidelines does it say anything about whether the outfits matched or not. She couldn't find anything, and said she would have to contact HR to discuss with them what her options were to write us up. Needless to say, none of us were ever written up. She did, however, say we still needed to dress in business attire. Word quickly spread to other departments about her forcing us to wear business attire. The next week, 2 departments around us decided they would also dress up in hideously matched clothing. The managers of those departments quickly got in touch with our manager and put pressure on her as they didn't like how their employees were dressing. Our manager called us into a meeting and told us we could wear blue jeans on Friday going forward. Malicious Compliance wins. Sometime later, I will tell you about the sign in and sign out board she created. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called Thank You Happy. It says, management and leadership are important, but you need a motivated crew who wants to work for that person. You need workers more than they need you. Another commenter down below called DJ House Shoes said, I'm pretty sure HR would be interested in a manager calling an entire team into a meeting just to threaten writing them all up for something that is not an HR violation. Can you all imagine the feeling being OP and walking into work that one Friday morning and finding that everybody else there jumped on board with your malicious compliance? That feeling would be amazing. And then to have the other departments do the same thing a couple weeks later, wow. OP, you definitely started something, and you were the beginning of the change that your office needed. Everybody followed you. That means they look up to you as a role model. If there's anything else you want to get changed there, lead the way, because it does look like everybody else will follow. Now at the end of this one, OP mentioned about the sign in, sign out board, and they did write up that story, so let's jump into that one now. This one comes to us from the same OP, MouseG23. It's titled, So You Want Us to Sign In and Sign Out Whenever We Have to Leave the Area? Cue Malicious Compliance Part 2. Same manager, second time she tried to micromanage. This also happened a long time ago when I worked for a major financial institution. This story is not quite as detailed as my last story. It involves the same manager and department that I worked in for the last story. Manager decided that she needed to track where we were at all times. Therefore, she put up a whiteboard with all our names on it with columns for sign out time, sign in time, and she wanted us to put a reason why we left our desk. I am sure you probably have an idea as to where this is going. It started out simply enough. I needed to go ask someone in another department a question. We didn't have our own dedicated phones, just one phone for each department. I, like the good girl I am, put the time I walked out of the department and who I went to see. When I got back, she was waiting for me and told me quite loudly that I didn't put in why I had to go see that person, and that going forward, I needed to be more detailed in why I had to leave my desk. She made sure it was in front of the entire team. Cue my malicious compliance. I had to use the restroom, so I walked up to the board, put in the time I was leaving, and in the reason, I put that I was going to the restroom, and that I would be urinating and defecating while I was in there. I walked out of the department and went to do my business. My manager had stepped out to attend a meeting at that time. Well, little did I know that my team had my back, and they all went to the board and signed out and put that they were going to the restroom, with varying detailed reasons as to what they were going to do while they were in the restroom. When I got out of the restroom, all my team members were there waiting for me. We walked back into the department together, just in time to see our manager standing in front of the board with one of her peers, as they had both been in the same meeting. The look on their faces was absolutely priceless. Needless to say, the board was very short-lived. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called Catless Boy Mom. It says, time 11:36, going to restroom, reason, got shit to do. Another user down below called Avid Learner said, it's amazing how creative people can get when they're micromanaged. The manager probably thought she was being clever with her sign-in board, but it seems like everyone had a different idea of fun. I bet the sight of that board filled with quirky restroom updates was priceless for her. It's kind of inspiring to see how small acts of rebellion can bring a team together and teach someone a lesson in humility. Plus, it's funny to think about what she must have been thinking when she walked back into her own department. Yep, I can agree with this one. The manager walking back into her department with nobody being there while she was with one of her colleagues, that would be amazing. They both walk in and they're going, where's the whole team? And then they walk up to the board and see all the different reasons they went to the bathroom in graphic detail. That was absolutely amazing. OP, as I said in the previous one, it sounds like everybody at your workplace is willing to follow you and back you up. That is a superpower. Make sure you use it wisely. This story comes to us from High Rise Drifter. I gave more than required, new manager didn't like this, and made some changes to my contract. 13 years ago when I worked for the UK government, I lived on the south coast of the UK and worked in London, so I had a reasonably long commute of about 90 minutes on a train each way. I had a motorbike accident which severely injured my left leg and hip, so I asked my HR department and boss to allow me to come in earlier and finish earlier to avoid rush hour, so I wouldn't have to suffer the pain of standing on a packed train all the way to work and back. They both agreed. Our office had a flexi-time workday of 8 hours, 7 hours plus a 1-hour lunch break between 7 a.m. and 8 p.m. How you chose to do that was up to you. However, business needs often dictated that some people needed to stay later or whatever. So my agreement with HR would allow me to circumvent that and just stick to my new agreed upon hours of 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. Of course, due to the train times, I would get into the office about 30 to 40 minutes before I was due to start and would leave 30 minutes after my agreed upon finish time. And I always put in an extra hour of work a day to do that. And I also often skipped my lunch break and just worked through it if needed to. There followed a blissful year of me managing my time perfectly and getting into the office without being in pain. When a new manager came into our office, he pulled me aside after a few weeks and said, "There is a perception in the office that you leave early." Of course, he wasn't privy to the agreed upon change in my time, and didn't like the fact that I got in early and left early when he usually had to stay until 5 p.m. at the earliest and 8 p.m. at the latest. So he arbitrarily changed my work hours from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. every day, meaning that I had to stand on the train to and from work. Also meaning that by the time I got into the office in the morning, I was in extreme pain. He still expected me to start work early and finish late though, like I had been. He told me that this had been agreed with HR as it had been over a year since my accident, and I was expected to have made a full recovery. I hadn't though, and in fact I still suffer from a weakened leg to this day. However, my new contract hadn't removed the clause that allowed me to only work 8 hours without any expected overtime. So I would get into the office at 8:15 to 8:20 each day and sit reading the newspaper, or sometimes literally doing absolutely nothing, which infuriated my boss even more, and clock in exactly at 9 a.m. and then clock out exactly at 5 p.m., no matter what I was doing. I would also take exactly 1 hour for lunch each day, regardless of whether I was doing anything. He tried to arrange meetings for before, after, and during those times, and I would decline them or leave during a meeting if it overran. There was nothing he could do about it. When he complained to me, I pointed out that it was in the contract that he had signed off with HR. Sadly, he made my life more difficult in other ways, and the pain in my leg got worse due to having to stand to and from work. So this crappy situation only lasted for a few months before I quit. Still, those few months got him very angry, so it was kinda worth it. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called Hatix. It says, "There's no way some manager anywhere in the civil service could unilaterally change a disabled person's contract without being put on a disciplinary themselves. If you're disabled requiring any other kind of medical consideration at work, your employer is required to make all reasonable adjustments. If this is true, you're missing out the end bit of it where you were awarded 6 figures in a discrimination settlement." Yep, if you're in this situation, 2 words you need to look up are constructive dismissal, but you also need to look into the laws for disabled workers in your country, because It sounds to me like this would be going against those laws in a pretty large way, just like the commenter was saying. And you could be eligible for a very large payout if you were to take this to court. Now, that being said, we don't know what country you're in, so look up constructive dismissal as well, because it seems like they forced you out of the company with what they were doing. Everything that they changed made you quit because they wouldn't accommodate you. I just feel like you could get a lot more out of this than you might think, and it might be worth looking into. If you enjoy daily Reddit stories, I encourage you to follow and add us to your favorites on whichever podcasting platform you enjoy the most. And if you're watching and listening on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button and drop a like on the video. It really helps us out. I thank you for watching and listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.